Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Your Spiritual Journey. This is Dr. Bob, and this is the space and the place where we talk about things important to your soul. As always, we'd appreciate it if you like us, leave comments, and maybe even subscribe on Patreon. And just a note that we're still asking people if they'd like to go to Bali with us to come along. We've got a couple more slots available, and we'd love to have you with us. So today's guest is somebody who has been on the show before. She was episode number 37, and that was recorded back in September of 2023. So that'll give you an idea of how long we've been around. And I saw that Sarah was on Substack. And I follow a couple of people on Substack now. And when I read about what she was doing lately and what she's grown into, and knowing what she's grown from because of that episode number 37, I was just fascinated to get caught up on the spiritual journey that she's been on since we last spoke with her. She has been working with Reiki and energy work since about 2009. And she's been through quite a number of iterations when it comes to religion, because she started out Presbyterian, moved on to Methodist, then Lutheran, and then Unitarian. I don't know if she's stuck with Unitarian, but we'll find out about that. Her husband was a Lutheran minister, so that was part of her journey with her husband. And you know what? I'm not going to say anything more. If you want to get the background on her, watch episode 37. But I'm going to ask Sarah to pick up from there and fill us in on what she's been doing since. I know that the last we talked with her, she had done one presentation at the NERR, and I had attended that presentation. After that episode, she did a second one, and I attended that one, and found it extremely informative and helpful. And she's grown since that point. So, Sarah, I'm going to turn the mic over to you. This is Sarah Soltow. She's I guess when we left her, she was living in Virginia. Is she still there? So, Sarah, get us caught up on what you've been up to.
Okay, well, we'll start with yes, we are still living in Virginia, outside of Richmond. I feel like we've landed in a very good place. I noticed from listening to the previous that I said we had landed on 15 acres of land. Well, that's now 24.
Oh, wow.
And this is all belongs to my son and his family. And then he has since, within the last couple of years, built and developed a cidery, a hard apple cidery business. Who knew? It's kind of behind us on some of the acreage that's here. And so he's working on, well, the cider's pretty tasty, I will say. He has live music up there a good bit. And it's like trees and just very peaceful and breezy and relaxing. And then he's building some walking trails down along the creek. And it's kind of a whole new world, which is kind of one of the themes for everything we're doing is new world, new earth, new stuff. And so that catches up a little bit. we are still with Unitarian Universalist Church. It's called First UU of Richmond. And, I've been in and out of lots of communities in my life. And I've never felt quite as accepted as I am because, I look at things differently and I kind of do things a little differently. And I always felt like I had to shut down big parts of myself. And in this particular community, congregation, whatever you want to call it, it's like 500 people. So it's plenty big community.
Yeah.
I just feel like I can do pretty much everything that I can be. I can do the basketry stuff. That show is just winding down right now. And music and speaking and pursuing divine feminine. We had a women-centered, you might call it, service back in March. And I ended up being a big part of that. And it was truly, truly lovely. And I just don't know that any place else it could happen. And so, I feel pretty fortunate to have landed in a place where I feel nurtured, supported, that I can continue to grow and be appreciated for the gifts that I bring. So, it's just a nice place to be. So that's that part of it, right? Okay. So then the next part of it is that, yes, when after the Northeast Reiki retreat of, I guess, 24, because I was not present last year, I just felt this really tremendous urge to continue this work with fascia and to put it into a more comprehensive format. So not just an hour presentation, which is pretty stuffed, but to stretch it out and for myself to allow myself to explore it more and to find the underpinnings and the groundings of it, which ever since I have worked with it, which has been many years now, I've always wanted to substantiate it because it, people who feel like energy work is woo-woo or whatever, the fascia thing is, it's very interesting and very different because we've never really been taught or been aware that it's even a part of the body. So the Substack, I looked around for platforms to write, and Substack kind of showed up as the one that I would choose. So I set myself up. It took me a few months. I'm happy to say that I didn't jump into it without thought because I can do that. But I took my time. I explored the platform. I got some information about how the platform works, things like that. And then I started writing. The first parts of it, well, to say what the whole thing is right now, there are basically 12 articles. And the articles follow through much information. And I'll just go through that briefly here in a moment. But 12 seemed like the right number. And interestingly, I had like about one every 3 weeks. And then my husband had some surgery, so I had to stretch things out a little bit in the last 8 months, I think. And so right now, it's a kind of a hiatus right now because my husband had a second shoulder surgery. It's been a long, long thing. And so I just haven't had time to wrap my head around anymore. But I think if you were to go and read, all of them over whatever your period of time would be, you would see that this journey unfolding and that where I did stop is kind of a natural stopping place. And I will go on from there when I have some time to wrap my head around where it will go. Yeah. Anyway, the series of the 12 articles on Substack begins with like the basic information about fascia as the organ of structure. I pulled out a couple of ideas to share today that I think we can kind of pull a strand through if you're willing to listen to all of that. And the idea of the fascial system is like it is the organ of structure, it is the organ of awareness, it is this fibrous element that of us that includes all the tendons and ligaments, and it's all the connective tissue of the body, interpenetrates every cell of our body and is connected in some extremely deep and significant ways to being human, basically. I like the spider web analogy. While fascia has a very much a structure to it, it is also very flexible in how it moves around and how it carries vibrational elements within, throughout, and beyond our body. So one of the little ideas is that, like, if you were to stub your toe, you would feel an instantaneous pain that runs from the tip of the toe to the top of your head. And that instantaneous reaction of whatever pain for one, but of like this awareness that this happened, is like that vibrational structure of like the spider web. The spider knows every vibrational movement of her web. We can know much of the vibrational structure of our fascial system. And that's kind of where the series is going, is what the fascia is, with all that substantiating science, medical background put into a form that's relatively easy to read. And then how this fascial network actually operates within us. So what goes on then is that with this body-wide system, it also moves into the energy linkages that we have, and that would be our chakra system, and then that would also be our extended system of energetic auras, how we operate in the world that way. And one of the, as I was writing along, when I got to the idea of perception and how the fascia interfaces with our perceptive abilities, I hit a hard part, because it was very icky, sticky science. And a couple of people read it and went, yeah, nobody's going to understand that. And I cannot say that I totally do either. So I had to back up and just throw that copy of it away and start again. And so what I ended up with, the actual article is called, what is it called? Going Deeper. I think that's what it's called. And it's right about in the middle. It's about number 6 or something like that. And it's the idea that our perceptive abilities are like an iceberg. There's an image of an iceberg there. And our 5 sensory experiences, the things that we depend upon and taught, that's the only thing that matters: sight, sound, touch, taste, hearing, that those are the only things that are actually real for us. That is simply the tip of the iceberg. That's what's showing. That's the tip of the iceberg. But there is this massive, massive body of perception that we carry with us. And these perceptive abilities go so deep, and they are so unknown to us. So the fascial system is what technically connects us to these deepest layers of perceptual communication, understanding, however you want to think about it. But it's beyond the 5 senses. You can call it extrasensory if you would like to. I like to simply think of it as deeper and pretty significant, probably in my mind and my heart, more significant than the 5 senses. So how this works is that very deeply within the fascial system, which is basically can be described as a crystalline network of bioenergetic. It is a communication system that extends throughout the body. It extends inner and outer. It creates biomagnetic fields. It carries communication instantaneously, pretty much speed of light, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. And so it, at some level, very deeply within it, the fascial system interconnects with what we know as the neural net, the neural system. And there is where the deeper connections begin. I recall from watching the previous interview that I said towards the end, I talked a lot about breath is the key, breath is the key, breath is the key.
Mm-hmm.
Breath is indeed the key. And so meditative breathing, whatever one's practices for mindfulness, whatever one's practices for going deeper, those are the practices that carry you into your fascial system of communication. So deeply within this perineural is what it's called. It's like just the very kind of like the very origins of the neural system is connections are connected with the fascial system, which was there before the neural system was there. So let's just be a little bit clear on that. And that carries you into what is the parasympathetic, which is the below consciousness. It carries you into what is the subconscious awareness of what's in you and what is around you. And I have just now gone off the rails from my notes, so I'm not sure where I'm heading with this, but I'll go anyway. So as a person, chooses to develop this deeper perceptive abilities, or maybe already has them, because how many people do we know who are psychic, who are empathic, who are kind of aware of a larger reality around them? Then that's the information that is coming into your fascial system, coming into your awareness through your fascial system, let us say that, because that energetic and vibrational quality, which is not part of your five senses, it's still out there. It's part of our larger world. And if your fascial communication energetic system can be opened to this, and it can be open to this, then the world becomes much bigger than what it looks like, what it sounds like, what you think it is. This is very much not mind oriented. This is very much like inner being. It goes to the intuitive senses, all of them. And this going deeper, this moving into the deeper layers of the iceberg itself, stepping away from the tip of the iceberg, moving into the deepest layers of it. That's, it's just an amazing journey. And it is, if you already have inklings of that kind of sensation or that kind of intuitive capabilities, then when you kind of fine tune that even more, bringing it in, I want to use the word conscious, intentionally, bringing it in intentionally, then things just start cracking open for you in this world. Now, what we can say is that doesn't mean you're going to go around talking about it all the time, because, it is very different perception. But when you are within those perceptive capabilities, I think that you understand, the perceptive abilities become very, very real to you, to us, to whomever. And you expand your world, you deepen and expand your worldview. Now, we have to also consider that these energetic expansions that we can nurture and learn to live with interconnect, interpenetrate with all other energetic systems that exist. Is this a good time to quote Nikola Tesla, who says that if you seek to understand the nature of the universe, you must think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration? Because within the construct of science, and this is where I like to be grounded in science, even if people go, oh, that's blah, 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 blah. But scientifically, quantum or otherwise, this is nothing but energy. We are nothing but energy. Energy that has been consolidated or densified into a form that we live in. Rocks are condensed energy. Trees are energy. Earth is energy. and space is energy, and emotions are energy, and it's all energy. So basically, you're choosing to move into the ocean of vibrational, energetic, frequency oriented reality that is very different. It's much more malleable. Many people, I'm sure, who listen are, Reiki practitioners. That's certainly using energy. And people who work with the idea of manifestation and or intention and manifestation, that's all pulling or using or being aware of these capabilities that, from my point of view and from my very basic belief system, is we are born to do this. This is who we are. We are humans. Our very basic human system is built on the construct of an energy matrix that is very much connected to the world around. One person that I spend some time listening to says, look into the eyes of the baby, totally open, totally absorbing every energetic thing, all the love or lack thereof around him, her. Watch the development of a child. See how, one of the examples I use in one of the Substacks is emotional conditioning through life. And the example is, the little girl who's like yelled at all the time, and this soaks into our being, and it lands in our fascia, and we carry it around for quite a while until we learn how to release whatever. The contrast of like a child who has been constantly criticized, like, you do this, do that, and or the child who is like nurtured and loved and delighted. And I had a phrase in there, who learns how to laugh and love and laugh and dance with the world. Those are big differences, huge. And so those differences, you can look around and see how people are formed in those ways. One of the realities also is that these things can be released, or the difficulties, you can work with those. And that is also energy work. And we know that through Reiki. We know that through many modalities. You look like you want to ask me a question.
I do. Well,
please get me back on track somewhere.
When we left you back in 2023, you were just beginning to explore the pineal gland and its role in all of this. And I wanted to have you talk about what you've discovered since you did all that research and exploration.
Yeah, well, here it is. The pineal gland holds microcrystals. It is a little crystalline, tiny little thing in the center of our brain. There was a guy in the 70s. His name is Dr. Fritz Albert Popp, and he did a lot of work with this. It's very interesting stuff, but it was disregarded because it's like, oh, that's not happening, blah, blah, blah. So, but his work is now, coming forth now. So he did a lot of work about how this crystalline energy, how it is held, or how it comes into the pineal gland. The pineal gland then is then inextricably connected with all the rest of the fascia. And he basically determined that photonic light, that the light that comes into our eyes, but also our being itself, like infusing our aura itself, that this photonic light, it runs through us. And there are, I'm not sure if it was him specifically who determined or discovered that photons, these little packets of light, photons carry encoded information. So as we absorb, as we are outside in fresh air and sunlight, allowing our beings to kind of be out there, we're pulling in very subtle information that resides in us somewhere. Now, a lot of how that manifests, I believe, is determined by how you want it to operate. So if you're the person who intends that you will be a connected being and that you will work with your deeper layers of perception and you will invite and intend information to unfold within you. Last article in the series of 12 is called Inside Out. And that's kind of where I'm landing right now, is learning how to operate from the inside out, to focus on my own vibrational being. I don't want to say capabilities. I want to say beingness, and nurturing that and allowing it to expand and learning how to work with it, because it's like an unlocking process. It doesn't just, I mean, for some people probably does just click and it's open. For me, apparently it requires work. So, and everybody's going to be different. So how to do that? So yes, the pineal gland is a specialized tool that we as humans carry. I cannot say that it's like the master cylinder for anything. I think it is simply part of this entire system, and a significant part. There are many stories from ancient mystery schools where people were placed into dark, like bottom of the pyramid, for example, although I'm not sure that's exactly what it was. And they were part of their mystery school training was to be in this no sunlight, no light space, and they had to navigate that using their inner light. My thinking would be that that inner light was from the pineal gland. Can I say I know how that works exactly? No. But I can say that there are a couple of flashes every now and again when I'm going into that kind of the very deep meditative state that I'm, kind of nurturing that. And I will kind of see a light in my mind, and I'm going, I think, yeah, okay, that's probably what that is. Now, how to nurture that to the place of being able to navigate a dark cave, I cannot answer. But the fact that it is there. There are coming through the eyes, there are on these, there are sub-anterior, some kind of nerve thing that I should be able to say, but I'm not going to be able to right now, that does connect from the eye itself into the pineal gland and will feed that. Interestingly, reptiles tend to have third eyes that are more active than human pineal glands. Reptilian structures have this. Very interesting. Haven't explored that really deeply, but I know it's out there somewhere. So I'm not sure that I answered your question enough, but I will say that this Dr. Popp, Fritz Albert Popp, he has a lovely quote, and it is, "We know today," and this was right before his death in 2018, "we know today that man essentially is a being of light." And that's kind of what I'm looking for, is like how to live into that promise, that, but it's, to me, it's a reality, to live into that deeper and more significant in many ways reality of embodying the light that we are meant to embody. And if you think about great masters of the past, that's what they did. That's they, walked around in like golden glows. That golden glow, there it is. That's what I'm looking for. Remember the story of the hand? I was 4 years old, and it's like, well, won't be doing that anymore. But that's what it is. It's like how, where, and it is definitely an inside out kind of a job. So I keep moving in that direction. Can I shift a little bit?
Please do. Go ahead.
Go right ahead. Okay, thank you. So one of the other kind of driving pieces of idea that has motivated me over these X number of years, and probably from the very beginning, first of all, was that the idea that the fascial system could be, from X number of years ago, could be where intuitive capabilities are housed. It could be the home of the subconscious. It could be the place where emotions are carried. And I'm going to say yes, yes, and yes. And then here's another one. This is Thomas Myers, who did just all of the formative structural, really, he wrote the book. It's a great book. And his quote is, to what extent these frequencies can be accessed by this internal system that we have, and how can this internal system that is frequency based, how can it be tuned to higher frequencies, to more frequencies, his words, to a wider spectrum of frequencies. And so again, this is where I am. So the analogy is the radio. So you have a radio, and let's say you lived in the 60s or 70s, and you lived a little bit ways out of town, and maybe you could get one radio station. We got one radio station, but and in your awareness, you think, oh, well, this is a great radio station, and this is the only one I can get. That's cool. I'll listen to that. I'm fine. It's got rock and roll. I like it. It's good. Then later, as you grow up or you move or you get a new radio system or something changes, all of a sudden you have all these channels of radio, and you can dial into different radio frequencies. And so the analogy is that we have been kind of stuck on a very limited frequency channel, which involves pretty much 5 senses and not much else. And we have the capability to retune ourselves, retune our crystalline, structural, electromagnetic, bioenergetic, auric, chakra energy fields. We have the ability now to tune them, open them up to other frequencies. And I'm going to use the idea of higher frequencies, things that our density of humanity could not easily recognize or absorb on a general day-to-day basis. So now we're tuning our dials a little bit more. How do you do that? Well, that's the question. And physically, to nurture your human self in all of its glory, physical and energetic, things like yoga, things like stretching, things like lots of water, things like good diet, healthy food, not processed, whatever. Lots of sunshine, lots of fresh air, qigong, tai chi. It's a good list. It's a list that we're all familiar with. But why is it significant? Because you want to have healthy 5 senses, or maybe you want to do something else. I know lots of stories who, when people start practicing yoga, all of a sudden they know the phone's going to ring before it rings. I mean, that's just like basic little energetic awarenesses. Or you think of somebody and then they call you. That's just like almost the easy stuff. Or you're driving downtown and you manifest a parking spot. I mean, that's all kind of the easy stuff. I say that it's not really that easy. But then what's the rest of it? What is this going deeper? Where is that going to take you? And what I'm going to say, and this is where we're going to go, because this is where I'm going now, is into a realm that's called living energetics. And it's going to be a little difficult to describe because, I'm in it, but I'm not like the person who can explain it all. But I do want to share this idea that above and beyond and around, there is a whole lot going on in our world today. And it is not just the physical crashing and bashing that we see, but it is some other kind of like very energetic, very high frequency stuff that's happening. And in the 2024, towards the end of that slide presentation, there's like a whole list of things that are happening right now. To kind of quote, we are at the end of a huge cycle. We are at the end of monster cosmological cycles, monster geological cycles. We are at the place where 2,000-year cycles are ending along with, and I've got my list, hold on. Yeah, 2,000-year cycles are intersecting with 25,000-year cycles, which are ending with 120,000-year cycles. And they're all kind of like rolling right now to their confluence of this stuff is coming to an end. However, if something comes to an end, something else is beginning. And so the trick, I believe, is to learn how to navigate the difficulty, because these cycles are, they're ending big junk, and then how to move into the new cycles. And nobody says it's going to be overnight. However, in order to, if these new cycles, and I would certainly believe that they are, if these new cycles are based on higher energetics, higher frequencies, then part of the trick is that our humanity is ramping up in itself. Now, some people would call this ascension. I also had to figure out what I felt like ascension was, because, if you're coming from a Christian tradition, more or less, it's like, oh, people floating up to heaven or the left behind or, whatever. However, let's consider ascension in terms of frequency and vibration. And it's not just those 5 that we have always lived with for a long time, but let's begin to open ourselves from the inside out, open ourselves into these higher frequencies of transformational energy that, in my world, I believe will carry us forward. I don't know if you hear people talking about New Earth. I don't know what you hear. I know what I hear. I know what I listen to. I know what I feed myself with. Vibrational energies, New Earth, a whole, cosmological stuff. It's all kind of out there. And when I go like out there, I mean, it is like out there. So I don't talk about it a whole lot, but I definitely, live with it being nurtured inside of me. And I feel like when I need to step forth like this right now and talk about it, then my desire is that I'm actually coherent about it, and that, my work, my progress, my inner whatever, my aligning myself with higher frequencies, incorporating them into my own abilities to be who I am, authentic self comes in to the conversation, that's what I would like to be able to do, to be. And it's they at the end of that previous slide presentation from a couple of years ago, I was talking about a new earth, and a lot of it is talking about a new kind of human being. To me, it is like really living into these very latent abilities. I believe we've always had them. We always carry them, but they've been covered up, for many, many various reasons. Some of them bigger than the person, but sometimes, just the person. It's all the lives you've lived and all the baggage we carry. And how do you kind of work through that? And I will tell Reiki clients when they're going through something difficult is that it's not always easy, but it is worth it.
Yeah.
And so, you just kind of keep going in the direction that you choose. And that is towards being, if you can call it the best person you can be, but I think it's more than that. I think it is really living into the realities that we are beings of light, that we do have the capabilities of every advanced master who's ever walked the earth. We just have to figure out, how to make it happen for ourselves.
Yeah.
Another question. I see it happening for you.
Oh, I've got a bunch.
Well, I'm happy about that. That's good.
Yeah, I'm with you on that vision of the new earth and what's happening and the ascension and all of that. I've had someone on the podcast. His name is Justin Shaw. He wrote a book called Sorcery 101.
Okay.
Sorcery being SOURCE as a connection to source. And he talks about that very thing of the capability of every one of us to be a sorcerer, meaning that we are so connected to source that we then have that light body and we are living as we should, as those representatives of source on this earth. And I have read about the convergence of those different calendars and those time periods and all of that coming together, and that the earth itself, Gaia, is involved in this rebirth and this ascension process. So I not only find that as exciting, and supposedly that's when you and I, chose to come into this lifetime to be here during this very exciting time.
It's very exciting, scary, but I said that the other day. I said, I'm really looking for it, but it's kind of scary. And this woman said, who's very steeped in this as well, she said, there is no place for fear. And so because fear is is a lower vibration. And I think that's my current lesson, is to opening up to it in total trust and acceptance. Yeah. That's a big deal. Mm-hmm. Anyway, back to you.
Well, to me, pardon me. To me, there's so much hope in this rather than fear.
Good. Yeah.
And that's, I guess that's the expression of that hope, is wherein lies the answer to, I guess, the fear that people experience, and that the chaos is important. That's part of the transition. So enjoy the chaos.
I try. I do try to do that. And sometimes, some days it's more successful than others. One of the phrases, it's an old song. Do you remember the band music from Big Pink? It's like Robbie Roberts and I don't know, these guys. They were great. I loved them a lot, and they were big for quite a while. They have an album. They had and have an album that was called Northern Lights. I think it was just called Northern Lights. And there's a song in it called Jupiter Hollow. And I love this song. And basically they're like pioneers in the new frontier. We don't know where to begin. And so I always, that tagline kind of always hooked on to me as like this, that's what this is like. We are pioneers in a new frontier, and we are learning where to begin. Yeah. So it's just one of the phrases that kind of supports me when I'm thinking about what we're doing. And then, of course, the other one that says, we are the ones we've been waiting for. So, and I know there are many, many, many of us. And this living energetics, this idea I was talking about, comes from a person. He's on Patreon, Dr. David Clements. And I have a little secret about that because I first heard him being interviewed with Pam Gregory, whom I think is fabulous. And I'm thinking, oh wow, this guy's got something really interesting going on. It was one of his first public kind of interviews, and he's trained as a theoretical physicist. He's like, you talk about science. He's just like a Dr. David Clements. And it was weird because after I heard him the first time, it was like I was thinking about the things he was talking about. And went, I like the sound of that. It took me literally 2 weeks to remember his name enough that I could actually go look him up. And I felt like that was my self somehow making a choice. Do I really want to go into this or not? Because you don't have to. I don't have to. But I choose to go into these ideas that he presents incredibly well. And you talk about big stuff happening, then this guy is talking about big stuff happening. So Dr. David Clements, and then he calls his, a lot of, I guess, an overriding kind of name for it is this living energetics, and very much connected to source. We have each of us having this intimate and very personal and very, very clearly, a very clear connection when it is brought forth. Connection to source, divine light and love. Pretty much, I think divine light and love, which brings us right back to the highest frequencies that can be embodied by a human being, and then how to move forward with that into a new earth. Please email me your Justin Shaw's information, and I will read and try to make a connection. Yeah, because that sounds like right on target. And the other thing about it is that, and it is pretty much anybody who's going to talk about this is going to say there are so many people. We are, all of these points of light. And to my mind, it's like all of this happening right now. These are the tipping point things. These are the more these ideas are moved out into other people's awareness, then this energetic reality, this new building the vibrational qualities of a world based on light and love, for crying out loud. I'm sure there's going to be some peace in there too. And that we're just feeding it. We're feeding it. And that's where, hope, yes. But that's where I can open up and embrace and say, I want my energy to be part of that. I from the inside out, I want to stand in this. I know that I came here for this very reason, as did you. And so support me in my standing in, please, higher self, God, universe, everything. Please support me to all of this, and allow me to be part of it.
So I'd like to get more concrete with you for a minute.
Sure.
Not that you aren't concrete, because everything you do is science-based. But you talked about working with a client. So I'd like to get at what it is you do with and for a client and how that happens. And also, when we last talked, you were very much into the divine feminine and having some issues with the patriarchy that surrounded you, including having 5 grandsons at the time. There's Now there's 6. Okay. So there's a lot of male energy in your life. So if you could talk about, what you're doing in terms of an application of all this work that you've done and the connection to the divine feminine and what that's about for you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't have a regular Reiki business right now, and what I found is that my when I have a table right here. When I do work on people, it's almost just like a few people every now and again. I have a couple regular people, but it's not so much. But what I kind of find myself doing is working in a way that I would call, and they are more intuitive sessions, and it is certainly energy Reiki based. I kind of structured a way of like with a person who's kind of new to a lot of this, I would like kind of like work my way through their entire system, energetic system, chakra based, and all that kind of like teaching and guiding as I would go, as they're like experiencing it, and then grounding them so deeply into the earth, and then bringing this earth energy up into them, and then moving back up the chakra system and just kind of enveloping them in this clear, more nurturing energy. And that's a very successful strategy. I'm sure other people do it. I know other people do it, but for me, it was like a kind of a shift on how I'm doing it. And then there's always, just the standard kind of like, Reiki, finding a place that needs a little bit extra support or clearing that out or whatever. I'll have little chats about energy with people when they're, kind of client based in the room here about the possibilities of like, what energy work can do for them. I just find my clientele seems to be very limited right now, like simply people who are very interested in it. And I'm not struggling with it or anything. It's just like, okay, that's fine. Maybe it'll change again. Who knows? When I was in Arizona, I worked pretty hard at building a business, and that was fine. But that it was fun and all that. But now it just feels like, yeah, I'm just kind of doing it. And I also feel like it's more like living into it and simply being that golden light, and just kind of, I don't know, I look people in the eye a lot. And if I'm close to someone, I feel like, my energy system, everything is always interconnecting. So I just feel like, that the idea of like entrainment and whatnot, like when an a vibrational source is like here, and then a higher vibrational source comes close, it entrains. It kind of what would we call that? Transmits vibrational whatever that kind of enhances the other and brings it up. I feel like I kind of do that just generally, and am pretty happy about that. That's kind of a practice in itself, actually. Like even going shopping and talking to people in stores and making them smile, or it's just kind of more subtle, it's kind of more gentle. But I feel like it is definitely an energetic practice. Divine feminine is simply where I am, and part of all of the earth transition is a return of the divine feminine, as in Gaia's feminine nurturing, mothering energy. So I basically again embrace that. Yeah, it doesn't, work real well to walk around talking about goddess stuff. I mean, I have women's wisdom circles at this UU church. I believe there are 3 that go very strongly. And we tend to focus on the feminine energies. That works. And so again, it's like little bits and pieces in my life everywhere now. And then as far as my very male-oriented family goes, I just decided, I was going to set boundaries. And so it's like either I will or I won't, do this or that. And I, love them. And I, love them as much as I can. I mean, totally, but sometimes, how that is. And, love them and try to, nurture all of them, and simply by being who I am and not pretending to be otherwise. But nobody's going to ask me about it. It's just who they are. And I can't really change that. So again, it's this inside out kind of thing. And I'm feeling very much like an elder. I'm feeling like, I worked pretty hard through most of my life, and I still do a lot. But, I feel like I nurture myself more. And that's part of the divine feminine as well, is self-nurture. That, I kind of decide what I need in order to take care of myself. And if I have to step away from something, then I simply step away from it. And I don't apologize. I hardly ever apologize anymore. Yeah. I'm pretty happy about that. So
the Substack work, is that going to become a book? And are you
I actually explored that. And I actually explored that. And I spent just a while, I looked around and I talked, because I think my take on fascia is unusual. And I think that it is like a nice comprehensive view, and it's very accessible and all that. That's what I think about it. But the thing about, publishing is it's going to be self-publishing. And I just I thought, it's published, it's on Substack. And if a person wants to read it, they can go there and read it. And what it would take financially and otherwise to do a hardback publication, it kind of felt like and this would be for me, not for other people, because I know it's very cool to publish a book. But it felt like it would be kind of an ego exercise for me. That's like, oh, look, I have a book. And I just, when it got to that place where it felt like that to me, I just kind of decided I'm going to let it go. And I want to write more on Substack. I want to get back to that, because I've been on hiatus here since I think August. And it's not that I don't want to. I have these ideas. I can, talk about this or talk about that, and I want to. I just don't have the headspace or I just don't have the space to do it right now. But I believe that I'll get back. It'll be about a year. It was last November that I began to explore Substack heavily, and then started writing in January. So I feel like, okay, it's a year. Okay. So now I'm going to, kind of reassess, or when I have a little bit more time, I think next month, just kind of move back into it and see how I want to do this. To prepare for you today was a nice review of what I had written previously. And it's like, oh, okay, well, sounds pretty good. So but to work on the publishing, it just seemed like a little bit more than I was willing to do. It's that, kind of like sitting back a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I find that interesting, because I've come full circle with my writing. This was before Substack ever existed. I posted a lot of things on Facebook and called them musings, and they were spiritual, philosophical musings. And there were quite a few of them. And then I decided, oh, this looks like a book. I could pull all this together. And then I made that same decision that you did, that it's an ego exercise to say, oh, I have a book. And, it's not that people shouldn't write books. And I've had my share of people on this podcast who have written books, like Justin Shaw. Some of those books are channeled. I mean, they're sort of told, you have to write this book. You will write this book. If I got
that message, I would do that. I'm not getting that message.
And I say, if you get that message, boy, do it, because
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
you'll
yeah,
just
yeah,
keep
yeah.
getting that message, and it's going to nag at you until you finally give in and do it. So you might as well give in the beginning, But
Right, right.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Speaking of channeling, I mean, that is, that direct messaging. I mean, where do you think that's coming from? And how do you think it's getting into you? And where is it going? All of that stuff is being carried in this like
yeah,
crystalline structure of who we are. It's just like, to me, it's like kaboom. It's all pretty evident when you look at the evidence. And
yeah,
so I like it.
yeah. No, that's great. We are about out of time. And I had some other questions, but I guess you've covered most of what I was going to ask about.
Okay.
So I've recently gotten into tuning forks. Now I know that you were into tuning forks for a while. Is that something that
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
uh
and crystal ball, oh my gosh, that stuff. And when you think about the vibrational nature of you can, whatever the vibrational nature of everything, and then how those things affect our bodies, it is amazing. I think I think it was in that previous interview I was talking about using them, and that there are some people who are pretty armored, I think is the technical term for it. And you can put the tuning fork on a spot, and it's like, yeah, I don't really feel anything, or da da da. And while I'm doing it, I'm feeling this vibration going
yeah.
from head to toe, and it's like, okay. And you really, that armoring is part of our it's a protective device. It is armor. And so how to move through that, it takes as
Yeah.
much time to take it apart as it probably took to put it on. So, armor is a thing. You have to take it apart in different pieces. And it really takes a lot of intention on the part of a person to say, I would like to unarmor myself.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe, some people do want to. And I probably had a good little bit of armor on me, and it took a little bit to break it down, but now it's a thing. But the vibrational modalities are huge. And I usually end sessions with, like, I have 2 nice tuning bowls, 3, and I usually end a session with just allowing this beautiful vibration to move through a person. And they always appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something very physical about it, the tuning fork vibration when that's used. I've recently been exposed to the idea of the vibration of color. And
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
interviewed somebody who came up with the Aura color wheel, which is mostly channeled, this book that she wrote. And it's interesting to discover, and she helps you do that in her book, to discover the vibration, the color vibration that's meant for you and your vibration, and how those interact with each other. So there are people who paint or do art, or maybe even like your baskets. There's a certain vibration to that experience that then you can share, and that a person can look at that piece of art, that painting, and experience the vibration within themselves. And I guess it's what we call, oh, that resonates with me, or that doesn't resonate with me.
That would be the easy way to describe it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would assume,
and I would say
that the fascia is involved with that.
It would be anytime you're kind of feeling What I'm finding as I work a little harder. This is something I did mean to say. This idea of living energetics, these meditations, and there's quite a few of them. They almost always begin with breathing. Well, they do always begin with breathing. And it's called a rhythmic breathing. And it's basically the breathing that feels the best for you. And then it says, now open yourself to your fifth dimensional love and light being. And so here are these higher frequencies, and you're being nurtured, taught how to bring them in. Fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional, seventh dimensional. Now open yourself to your fifth through eighth dimensional higher expression, higher love, light, vibrational self. And you absorb these higher vibrations into your very being. That's the nature of this living energetics meditation stuff, which is very cool. And then there are times, I'm in meditation doing this, and I can feel, my whole vibrational self doing its thing. But then there will be other times when I'm out doing something or sitting or being or doing something else, and I will feel that. Mm-hmm. And that is, to me, is like, oh, yay. That's where this practice is being integrated into the being that walks around and interacts with others. So I'm not sure why I said that, but I think I needed to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at the end of every podcast, as you know, I give the opportunity to lead the audience with a few words of wisdom. So this is your time.
Thank you. Okay, so as I ended the first one, the breath really is the key. So when you focus on your breathing and you find practices that support your focusing on your breathing, and you allow yourself to be carried more deeply into the depths of the iceberg, the inner beingness that we are, you discover a whole new world. And, an iceberg is substantial and nobody knows how to get to the bottom of it. And your personal perceptions, please consider that your five senses are simply what you walk around with here in this world. You have to have them to navigate whatever. But there are other areas of existence that you can learn to navigate, and they are tuned to higher frequency, higher vibration. And we are totally designed to access and utilize this aspect of ourselves. Each person, as I'm sure your sorcery person is going to say, each person has a direct connection to the highest sources, infinite love and light. How do we get there? That's the job. That's the thing. And it essentially begins with breath. So mindfulness practices, meditation practices, breathing practices, yoga practices, vibrational practices, healthy living practices. This world is a practice, not a perfect. There is no perfect. But we are on this journey, and we are on it together. And the journey is to a new earth. Happy to be here. Want to be part of it. Come along. I think it's going to be joy, absolute joy.
Well, thank you for that. Audience, as always, take what you've heard and incorporate into your life that which resonates with you. Put the rest on a shelf until you're ready to deal with it. And until next time, this has been your spiritual journey.